For over 1,000 years, the name Veilroth, the Eternal, echoed like a ghost across the galaxy. No one truly knew where he came from, only that once he arrived, entire civilizations vanished without leaving behind even dust. He did not demand land or treasure or power, he simply destroyed, moving from one star system to another in a ship that looked more like a living creature than any machine. Its surface pulsed with black energy, and it had no engines, no visible weapons, just silence, darkness, and death. Many believed he wasn't even a being, but a force of nature, something far older than stars themselves. The Galactic Council, once proud and strong, had tried everything. Armadas, energy bombs, psychic attacks, even sacrifices, all failed. Every species eventually chose fear over resistance. They erased maps that led to his region of space. They issued strict orders, do not enter Sector 9 Black. And for centuries, no one dared. Then came a strange signal. Weak, but clear. A human ship had entered Sector 9 Black. Everyone expected it to disappear like all the others. But this time, something different began. The pilot of the ship was not a warrior, not a commander, not even part of the military. His name was Dane Keller, a quiet man who once repaired mining bots on the red deserts of Mars. He lived alone, preferred silence, and had no history of violence. But for years, Dane had strange dreams, visions of darkness, a voice calling his name, and a shape in the stars that both terrified and attracted him. He didn't understand why, but one day he packed up his few belongings, repaired an old explorer ship, and flew into deep space with one goal: find the source of the voice. Other humans thought he had gone mad. Aliens laughed when they learned where he was headed. Some tried to stop him, but Dane was calm and determined. He didn't say much. He just smiled and said, "I have to go." The closer he got to Sector 9 Black, the more the dreams intensified. And when he finally crossed the invisible border into forbidden space, the entire galaxy held its breath, expecting him to vanish like the rest. But Dane didn't vanish. His signal stayed active. He didn't even hide. He sent a short message to anyone listening: "I'm here." And he's waiting. Inside that dark sector, Dane's ship floated near a massive, terrifying structure. Veilroth's ship appeared like a moon made of shadows. Dane stepped out, wearing a simple spacesuit, and waited. Moments later, without warning, he was pulled into the heart of the alien vessel by some invisible force. The world outside watched in shock. No alarms. No destruction. Just silence. Inside, Dane found himself standing before a tall, ghostly figure with burning white eyes and a face that shifted like smoke. Veilroth looked at the human for a long time, then spoke, not with his mouth, but directly into Dane's mind. "Why have you come, fragile one?" Dane replied calmly, "To end this." Instead of reacting with anger or violence, Veilroth stepped back. For the first time in centuries, he looked uncertain. Something about Dane disturbed the ancient alien. He tried to read the human's mind, but failed. He tried to scan his body, but strange waves of energy pushed him back. Dane didn't attack or threaten. He just stood there, silently glowing with a light that wasn't from his suit. That light came from inside him. Veilroth's memories began to return. Long ago, before time had names, he had fought against beings who created strange weapons, creatures designed to resist his power. They failed, or so he thought. One of those creatures, discarded on a small blue planet, had evolved through time, through struggle, through war and love and loss. That planet was Earth. And that creature was Dane. Something ancient had awakened inside the human, something beyond science or reason. Dane's DNA held forgotten codes, hidden energy, the final key to a prison even Veilroth didn't realize he had built around himself. The alien tried to crush Dane with pressure, bend his bones, and tear his spirit. The human did not fall. Instead, he began to glow brighter. The ship's walls trembled. Dane stepped forward, and with each step, the energy inside him pushed back the shadows. Veilroth roared, not in anger, but in fear. He saw his end in the eyes of a creature he had once thought worthless. Dane did not raise a weapon. He raised his hand and spoke quietly. "This ends now." A wave of golden energy burst from him, filling the entire ship. Instead of destroying Veilroth, it wrapped around him like light touching old stone. The alien screamed not from pain, but from release. The darkness peeled away from him like old skin. The power that had consumed him for centuries faded. Veilroth fell to his knees. For the first time, he was free. The curse that made him a destroyer had ended. The galaxy, still watching, didn't know what to make of it. They waited for more destruction, but none came. Instead, the black ship cracked open and dissolved into stardust. Dane stepped out, glowing like a small sun, then vanished. His ship was found drifting weeks later, empty. No sign of him. But every race, from the smallest moon-dwellers to the largest empires, felt the change. The fear was gone. Veilroth the Eternal was no more. Peace returned to the stars, and so did hope. Stories spread like fire. The human who walked alone into the heart of darkness and ended an age of terror without firing a single shot became a legend. Statues were built in his honor. His name became a symbol of courage, mystery, and change. No one fully understood what he was or how he did it. But one thing was clear: he had changed everything. Even in the farthest corners of the galaxy, when new threats rose or old fears returned, someone would whisper his name, and the story would begin again. There was once a being no one could stop, feared by all. But a single human went to face him, not with weapons or war, but with something far more powerful, and the galaxy has never been the same. In a galaxy ruled by ancient empires and powerful alien races, humans were seen as nothing more than background noise, weak, slow, and not advanced enough to even be considered a threat. Most species ignored Earth, thinking of it as a strange little planet with loud voices and short tempers, but no real influence. They had no great weapons, no psychic warriors, and no ancient technology. Other civilizations had seen 1,000 wars, destroyed entire planets, and bent time itself. Humans were still arguing about borders and trading food in metal boxes. So when the Zorth Dominion announced a new intergalactic tournament, the most dangerous one ever held, no one expected a human to even qualify, let alone compete. The tournament wasn't just a game. It was a battle for dominance, a test of strength, intelligence, survival, and willpower. Species that had ruled for centuries sent their best champions, genetically enhanced killers, war priests who could bend minds, machines with no fear and no soul. Each one was built to win. And yet, among these monsters stood a single human, wearing an old jacket, carrying no weapon, and looking like he had accidentally walked into the wrong place. His name was Eli Carter, and nobody expected anything from him. Eli didn't speak much. When asked what his power was, he simply said, "I'm good at staying alive." Other competitors laughed. Some didn't even bother to remember his name. The first round was a brutal arena where giant machines hunted contestants through fire and steel. Many died within minutes. Eli didn't fight the machines. He observed them, watched their patterns, and quietly moved through the chaos. While others used brute strength, Eli used timing, shadows, and luck that didn't feel like luck at all. He passed the round without a scratch. Still, no one believed he would last much longer. The second challenge was a mind labyrinth created by the Psyker, a race of telepaths who could trap beings inside illusions. Champions cried, screamed, and broke down inside their own nightmares. But not Eli. He walked through the maze slowly, whispering to himself, grounding his thoughts, using old meditation tricks he had learned during his recovery from war trauma back on Earth. Somehow, the Psyker's illusions didn't control him. He reached the end calmly, as if he had just walked through a memory instead of a trap. The judges began to pay attention, but the crowd still called him a fluke, a background story waiting to fail. The third challenge changed everything. It was called the Beast's Pit. Competitors were dropped into a cave system, where they had to face the Karvok, a monster made from failed genetic experiments. Its body was armor, its mind was rage, and it had killed dozens of champions in the past. Eli didn't run. He didn't charge either. He studied it, learned its rhythm, and then did something no one else dared. He spoke to it. Using his calm voice, his steady breathing, and the universal translation chip, he found the broken, hidden mind inside the beast. While others saw a monster, Eli saw a prisoner. He didn't win by killing. He won by freeing the creature's mind. The Karvok bowed to him and walked away, refusing to fight. The audience went silent. No one could believe what they had seen. A human had defeated an unbeatable beast with kindness and courage. From that moment on, whispers began. Maybe he wasn't just lucky. Maybe he wasn't just surviving. Maybe he was changing the game. The final challenge was the worst. It wasn't a physical trial or a mental puzzle. It was a vote. The remaining champions were told only one could win, and they had to decide who it would be. If they could not agree, they would all die. The others argued, threatened, and plotted. Eli said nothing. He simply stood, looking around at each of them. One by one, they turned to him not because he asked, but because he had earned their respect. He had shown mercy, strength, intelligence, and humility. No tricks. No arrogance. Just quiet power. The champions voted for him. Even those who had sworn never to bow to a human agreed. Eli Carter, the human nobody expected, became the champion of the galaxy's greatest tournament. He didn't give a victory speech. He didn't demand power or glory. He just said, "I did what I had to." But the universe had already changed. Back on Earth, people were stunned. The galaxy that once ignored humans now studied them. What made Eli different? Was he a freak, or were humans hiding something deeper? Alien scholars began to dig into Earth's history, its wars, its culture, its stories of survival against impossible odds. They found a pattern: humans were messy, emotional, chaotic, but they never gave up. They adapted, they learned, and they endured. Eli had reminded them that true strength wasn't always about muscle or mind. Sometimes it was about heart. Across distant planets, children of different species dressed like Eli for festivals. Statues of him were built in places where humans had never even set foot. His image became a symbol not just of humanity, but of unexpected greatness. Eli disappeared soon after the tournament. Some say he returned to Earth and lives quietly, fixing old machines and watching the stars. Others say he joined a hidden council that prevents wars behind the scenes. A few even believe he was never truly human, but something more, something ancient, sent to remind the galaxy that greatness doesn't always roar. It sometimes walks in silence. But one thing is certain: whenever a new challenge rises, when fear returns, and when people feel small against the darkness, someone always says the same words: remember the human nobody expected. And suddenly, hope returns. In the far reaches of space, beyond the borders of known maps and familiar stars, there existed a quiet sector where ships rarely traveled and signals vanished like whispers in a storm. This place was considered cursed by most interstellar pilots, a dead zone where nothing of interest existed until one day, a research vessel from the Galactic Union lost contact with its fleet. Panic spread across command centers, and whispers of another species, the unknown kind, began to stir. A rescue team was sent, composed of the best from various species, but among them was one human named Captain Mara Jennings, selected not for her strength nor her technology, but because of her history of surviving strange encounters where others had failed. The team landed on a planet that looked forgotten by time, its skies heavy with fog, its surface scattered with ancient structures built from dark stone and glowing lines, unlike anything seen before. The others scanned and analyzed, but Mara felt something strange in the air, like the planet itself was watching. As night fell, shadows moved without wind, and their equipment began to fail one by one. Communications were jammed, weapons glitched, and strange whispers filled the silence, not in sound, but inside their minds. The team thought it was hallucinations, perhaps some chemical in the air, but Mara recognized the pattern. It was the same feeling she had experienced years ago when her own crew vanished on a mining mission, leaving her as the sole survivor without memory of what happened. This wasn't madness. It was a message. Determined to understand, she separated from the group, following the pulse she felt deep inside, reaching a structure buried beneath the surface. As she stepped into the dark hall, the stone lit up with soft blue lights, and something ancient awakened. A being emerged, not made of flesh nor machine, but something in between, like a walking memory trapped in a shell. It spoke without words, using emotions and thoughts, showing her visions of time before humans even knew the stars existed. It was the last of its kind, once rulers of galaxies, now hiding from a war they had themselves started. Their kind had destroyed too much, and now they chose silence. But Mara had come too far, and the being felt something unusual in her, something even it could not understand. It showed her what had happened to the missing researchers. They were not dead, but trapped in a dimension between thoughts and space, caught in the ancient machine's memory. Only Mara could reach them, not because of her strength, but because her mind was built differently. Where other species relied on logic or power, humans had something chaotic and wild imagination. That was the key. It guided her into a mental realm of shifting rooms, impossible stairs, and voices echoing from every corner. Her memories blurred with reality, and time twisted like a ribbon in water. But Mara did not lose herself. She remembered her crew, her mission, her purpose. Piece by piece, she pulled the lost minds back, using only fragments of dreams and stories to reconnect them. When she emerged, hours or perhaps centuries later, she wasn't alone. The missing researchers followed her, weak but alive, saved from a fate no one understood. The ancient being, now fading, gave her one final message: humanity would change everything. Not because they were stronger, but because they were unpredictable. And sometimes, in a universe filled with rules and control, unpredictability was the only hope left. Mara and her team returned to the Union, not with weapons or secrets, but with something far more powerful: a connection to a forgotten race, and a warning. The galaxy was not as empty as it seemed, and the oldest beings still watched from the dark. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the planet had vanished the moment they left. Others said Mara had brought something back with her, something that still spoke in her dreams. But what no one could deny was that a human had gone into the unknown and returned with answers no one expected. Now, every ship passing near that sector pauses, just for a second, as if sensing the story left behind. And among all the logs and legends, the tale of the unexpected encounter lives on, not just as a mystery, but as proof that sometimes the most ordinary being can unlock the most extraordinary truths. In the distant future, when most of the galaxy had been explored and documented, a strange pattern began to emerge. Whenever ancient ruins or lost civilizations were uncovered on distant planets, one species always triggered something unusual when present: humans. The Galactic Council had ignored this coincidence for decades, assuming it was chance or faulty data, but a growing group of alien researchers believed otherwise. To investigate further, they organized an elite scientific expedition to a newly discovered world in Sector R9, a dead planet with massive underground chambers untouched for millions of years. Among the team of elite minds and experts, one human historian named Dr. Elias Rowe was added not for his brilliance, but because the council insisted that a human must be present, though no one could explain why. From the moment they landed, Elias felt drawn to the ruins, not out of curiosity, but something deeper, like the place was whispering his name through the wind and stone. As they ventured deeper into the underground city, symbols etched in the walls began to glow softly in his presence, while the rest of the team stood helpless, unable to activate or translate anything without him. Elias touched one of the glowing panels and suddenly collapsed, his mind flooded with visions not of this planet, but of Earth, long before modern history, showing scenes of powerful beings with technology so advanced it bent time and space. But what shocked him most was that those beings looked like humans, or more precisely, like ancient versions of humans, forgotten by modern history and erased from all records. When he awoke, he told the team what he saw, but no one believed him except an old alien archaeologist who had once theorized that humanity didn't originate from Earth as everyone believed, but was instead placed there by an unknown ancient race. The team decided to test this theory, and as they ventured further into the ruins, they found chambers filled with DNA samples, star maps, and holographic records, all pointing to one terrifying truth: humans were not a natural species. They were created, designed, planted, and worse, they were not the first version. Several older models of humans had existed before, each wiped out and redesigned until the current form finally spread across the stars. But the creators had vanished without a trace, leaving behind machines and memories, waiting for their creation to return to the source. Elias, now connected to the ruins in a way no one else was, started to feel changes in his body and mind. He could understand alien languages instantly, navigate complex technology just by touch, and sense danger before it arrived. He realized he was being awakened, step by step, by the ruins themselves, as if his very DNA carried a key hidden for eons. As the team uncovered the final chamber, a message played in a language none could hear except Elias. It warned of a coming reset, a time when the galaxy would be purged again unless the last of the human line proved worthy. Elias begged the others to leave, to escape the planet before it was too late, but many refused, hungry for answers and fame. The ruins responded by collapsing the outer tunnels, trapping them inside, and forcing Elias to make a choice: unlock the core memory that would either destroy them all or reveal the final truth. He placed his hand on the last panel, and a blinding light engulfed the room. When he opened his eyes, the others were unconscious, but alive, and the chamber had changed. It was no longer ancient, it looked new, shining, alive. A figure appeared before him, not physical, but a projection of thought and light, and it spoke directly into his mind. It told him that humanity was an experiment, the last hope of a dying race that had once ruled the stars. The final version of humanity was designed with one trait: no other species had resilience of spirit. Not just to survive, but to grow, adapt, and rise again after every fall. That was the hidden truth, the one buried deep in their cells, memories, and stories. It was never about strength, intelligence, or technology. It was about the refusal to give up. The figure said the test had been passed, barely, and the awakening had begun. Elias returned to the surface with the others, forever changed. He didn't tell the council everything. He only said the ruins were too dangerous and should be left alone. But in secret, he began to write history, warnings, truths hidden as fiction, hoping that someday others would read and understand. The truth buried in humanity was not just about where they came from, but about what they were capable of. And as stars shifted and old enemies began to stir across the galaxy, Elias knew the time would come when humanity would be tested again. But this time, they would be ready. For centuries, the galaxy had been ruled by ancient empires, vast alien coalitions with fleets larger than planets, and armies trained for thousands of years. Humanity, compared to them, was young, scattered, and ignored. The other species believed humans were weak, noisy creatures, more suited for entertainment or mining colonies than for anything of real importance. No one expected them to rise, let alone challenge the balance of power across star systems. But everything changed the day a small outer rim planet was attacked by the Exolari Dominion, a ruthless and technologically superior race that prided itself on crushing rebellion before it could breathe. The invasion was meant to be quick, just another forgotten world to burn, but the humans didn't run, and in the middle of that chaos stood Captain Raylan Voss, a man who didn't look special, didn't carry powerful weapons, and wasn't part of any galactic council, yet whose choices would echo through every corner of the galaxy. When the Exolari forces landed, their machines towered over buildings, their drones filled the skies, and their commanders broadcast a message of surrender. Raylan watched his people trembling, some crying, others ready to accept fate. But something inside him refused to fall. He grabbed an old rifle, activated the city's emergency beacon, and sent out a simple message: not a call for help, but a challenge. We will not kneel. The beacon caught the attention of nearby human colonies, then distant ships, then old allies, and even pirates. What began as a desperate stand turned into a wave of resistance. Raylan didn't lead from a throne. He fought in the mud, repaired broken ships with his own hands, and inspired not just humans, but even aliens who had lost faith in their own leaders. The Exolari underestimated him, thinking he was just another fool with a loud voice. But Raylan was a strategist, a fighter, and most of all, a believer in something no machine could calculate: hope. He studied the weaknesses of the enemy, used their arrogance against them, and turned every defeat into a new tactic. His forces grew with every battle, as more and more oppressed colonies heard his story. The legend of the human who stood alone and fought back spread faster than any fleet. Soon, even the Acceleri started to fear his name. In one battle, with barely a dozen outdated ships, he destroyed a full auxiliary supply line by using asteroid fields as cover, predicting the enemy's path like he had seen it already. But what truly changed the galaxy wasn't just the victories, it was the idea that one human, one mind, one voice could spark something powerful enough to shake empires. The other alien races began to question their silence, their loyalty to old powers, and slowly, rebellion spread. In secret, ambassadors from long-defeated civilizations came to Raylan for advice, guidance, and eventually allegiance. Raylan didn't ask for thrones or riches, he asked for unity. He believed the galaxy could be more than war and control. But he also knew peace wouldn't come without fire. In the final battle over the dead moon of Arvalis, Raylan faced the Exilari warlord Korthar, who personally led the largest fleet in the sector. Outnumbered 10-1, Raylan didn't retreat. Instead, he activated a chain of satellites that had been placed secretly over months, powered by salvaged energy cores, and used them to blind the enemy's sensors. The battle that followed was brutal, chaotic, and full of loss, but in the end, the Acceleri flagship was destroyed and Korthar vanished. The war wasn't over, but the tide had changed forever. The Council of Elders, once distant and silent, finally acknowledged humanity not as pests, but as equals. Raylan, wounded and tired, refused to be called a hero. He said he was just a man who couldn't stand watching his people fall. But for millions across the stars, he became a symbol not of war, but of resistance, strength, and belief in something better. His image was carved into monuments, his words became chants in rebellions far from Earth, and his story was passed from one generation to the next. The galaxy, once cold and unchanging, had shifted because of one human. One unexpected, ordinary man who carried the fire of hope in a place where no one thought it could burn. And from that moment on, every empire, every ruler, and every soldier remembered his name before going to war, because they knew if just one human could change everything once, it could happen again.